for joining us for the middle school ministry at Mount Pleasant Christian Church. My name is Mike Sheely. I'm the middle school pastor, and we are starting a brand new series called Words for the Wise. And so as we get started today, I want to ask you this question. Have you ever embarrassed yourself in front of a group? That's feeling awkward, self-conscious, or ashamed. And if you haven't already, pause this video, go to the description, and download the handout called The Weekly. In there, we have a crossword puzzle that you use to take notes for today's lesson. We thought with doing wise words, we'd kind of give you a fun way. There are some regular notes in there, but there's also a crossword puzzle, and I'll be going through some of those as we go. So, number 10 across is embarrassed, E-M-B-A-R-R-A-S-S-E-D. And once you have that, then just kind of think about that. Have you ever been embarrassed? Have you ever embarrassed yourself in front of a group? I definitely have. And I want to tell you one of my embarrassing stories happened in front of a group of college students, and it happened with my now wife, then potential girlfriend. Need to give you a little context. Back in the 90s, when I was in college, I know, a long time ago for you guys, I wore jeans that were sometimes Jinko brand, sometimes not, but they looked like this. That's right. For you that are used to wearing skinny jeans or tight jeans or just what you would call regular pants, these are very, very different. They're big. You see that back pocket goes from your butt all the way down to below your knee. They were crazy. They were inspired by skate culture. I was never a skater, but I liked Jinko jeans. I also wore Adidas kind of soccer shoes. So kind of keep that all in mind as I tell this story. We were inside a gymnasium. We were at a conference, and we were doing one of those deals where everybody kind of sleeps in different parts of the gym, guys on one side, girls on the other, and we use the locker rooms to get ready. And I was trying to get Michelle's attention and happened to be at center court on the basketball court. We're all just kind of hanging out, kind of talking before we started to get done for the night. And I was kind of making fun of her and imitating something that I thought she had done. And so I was like, whoa, look at me. And I pretended to fall. But because I was wearing soccer shoes that didn't have great grip on the court, and because that shoe was underneath those big old Jinko jeans, just a refresher in case you forgot, I slipped cartoon style and fell flat on my back on the gym floor at center court for everyone to see. It was very embarrassing. I remember laying there and my friend walked over, Jose, and looked at me, and I was like, she saw that, didn't she? And he's like, she's not the only one that saw, and it was so embarrassing. So I wonder for you, have you ever been embarrassed? And with that, have you ever thought this question? How do you avoid being embarrassed? That's what we're going to help you answer today, how you avoid being embarrassed. Originally, the lesson was called How to Live a Pure Life, and I thought, we're going to get to the same destination, but this might be a pressure point that would help you out, especially in 5th or 8th grade. How do you avoid being embarrassed? Let's start with this. Do you know anyone who is really smart in school, but not so much in everyday life? And maybe it's you. You know what I'm talking about, the person that gets straight A's, perfect grades on projects and homework, but you're outside and they just don't seem to have common sense. They don't know where to go direction-wise. They have a lot of smarts when it comes to books, but in everyday life, they really need some help. Do you know people like that? Well, that is the difference between wisdom and knowledge. So let's kind of break this down together today. So wisdom or knowledge, first of all, knowledge is having information. You gain it through books and research and delving into facts. And in your handout, that is number 3 down, knowledge. And the opposite, not opposite, but different than that is wisdom. That's what we're going to talk about today, and most of our focus is going to be on for this whole series over the next 4 weeks. Wisdom is using information well. And you gain it from experiences, yours or other people's, and you acquire it over time. That's number 5 down in your notes there, wisdom. If this is too fast, hey, it's a video. Hit pause, write your answer down, and you're good to go, okay? So that's knowledge versus wisdom. So then the question is, if knowledge is information and wisdom is living it out, How do we get wisdom? Well, one of the books that we have in the Bible is called James. It's named for who it was written by. James happens to be one of the brothers of Jesus, and he talks about this. So check this out. In James chapter 1, verse 5, he said, "If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you." Now, that sounds real simple, right? Hey, I need some wisdom. God, give me some wisdom. But it's not quite that simple. Remember, knowledge is information. It's facts. It's material that you know. Wisdom is gained either from your experience or somebody else's life experience. We have a whole set of 3 books in the Bible that are about wisdom: Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. And Proverb gives us some real practical wisdom advice. King Solomon collected it together. And we're looking at the first 7 verses of that book as he sets it up and explains the purpose of it and why it's set there. So read this along with me. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. These are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. So let's just pause right there. These proverbs are to teach people wisdom and discipline. In your handout there, number 9 down is Proverbs. The purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. So we can learn wisdom from other people from the book of Proverbs. Okay, let's continue on. He says, their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise, and the riddles. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Okay, so we had this book, this collection of wisdom, of experiences of other people to guide us in life. And by reading these proverbs, we'll grow in that wisdom from other people. So this is a great book for us to read into. Little trivia tidbit, there's 31 chapters in Proverbs. If you were to read 1 chapter a day, you have the opportunity to grow in wisdom every day, all month long. Well, what about Jesus? Did he take this stuff seriously? Did this affect his life? It did. And instead of taking my word for it, let's go look in the book of Luke, chapter 2. You're most familiar with Luke 2 when you know about the Christmas story. But at the end of the book, we get this little snapshot of his life when he was 12 years old. Are you 12 right now? Are you going to be 12 soon? Do you remember being 12? Perfect little section for students in 5th or 8th grade, because this is the one snapshot we see of Jesus between his birth and being about 30 years old. So check this out. It says, every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the Passover festival. When Jesus was 12 years old, they attended the festival as usual. After the celebration was over, they started home to Nazareth, but Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents didn't miss him at first because they assumed he was among the other travelers. But when he didn't show up that evening, they started looking for him among the relatives and friends. Now, before you think too badly of Jesus' parents, of Mary and Joseph, here's the deal. At 12 years old, when they went to Jerusalem, Jesus most likely would have traveled with Mary and the other women and kids as a child. But he would probably gone through a ceremony at 12 years old that we now call the bar mitzvah, which is a rite of passage, beginning that change from being just a child to being a man. And so on the trip home, he would have more than likely traveled with the men, including Joseph, on the way home. And it would have been easy for one of them to lose track of who was supposed to be with him. They also traveled with a lot of family, and it wasn't uncommon to hang out with your cousins. And so probably as they were walking along, they could have traveled all day long and just thought, hey, he's with his cousins hanging out, having a good time. No worries, just like the trip to Jerusalem. But then they realize at night, when you go to be with your family to camp, that he's not there. So let's pick up and see what happens. His parents didn't miss him at first because they assumed he was among the other travelers. When he didn't show up that evening, they started looking for him among other relatives and friends. When they couldn't find him, they went back to Jerusalem to search for him there. 3 days later, they discovered him in the temple, sitting among the religious teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Wow. Okay. So they find him, and look who he's with. Jesus, 12-year-old Jesus, number 6 down, is hanging out with religious teachers in the temple. Man, that's pretty crazy. And what was he doing? Well, it says that he was listening to them, number 7 down. He was listening to what they were teaching, these wise people when it came to his faith. And not only listening, but it says that he was asking questions. So number 4 across is asking. He was actively involved in that process. He was proactively making sure that he understood what they were talking about. And here's what it says. It's really crazy. All who heard him, 12-year-old Jesus, were amazed at his understanding and his answers. His parents didn't know what to think. Son, his mother said to him, "Why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been frantic, searching for you everywhere." "But why did you need to search?" he asked. "Didn't you know that I must be in my father's house?" But they didn't understand what he meant. Then he returned to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them, and his mother stored all these things in her heart. Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and all the people. And there it is. Number 8 across. Jesus grew in wisdom. He took that knowledge, that information, and put it into practice, what he learned in his own life and what he learned from others, including these teachers. So here's a quick review about Jesus, what we just learned from Luke 2. Number 1, when he was 12 years old, and probably with the rest of his life, he was with people who were wiser than him. What did he do when he was with them? He was listening to them. Then he asked questions so he would understand things fully. And then through that process, he grew in wisdom. So our question before was, how do you avoid being embarrassed? The answer is, you'll need wisdom. I can't guarantee you that if you have wisdom, you'll never make a fool of yourself like I did. I can't guarantee that you'll never have another embarrassing moment. But a lot of things that we're embarrassed by often come from foolish choices. That's when we know what to do and choose to do what we shouldn't. And so when we have wisdom, we learn from our own life experience and from other people's experiences how to put knowledge, that information into practice, how to make these choices that will help prevent embarrassment as much as possible. And so here's the deal. I'm going to give you a bunch of things here. We're not going to put the fill-in-the-blank crossword puzzle on the screen every time. Again, you can pause the video and fill these in. But these are some key points that we learned from Proverbs and from Jesus' life. If you want to be wise and avoid making mistakes that will cause you embarrassment, spend time with people older and wiser than you, even if they're not here. How do you do that? Well, obviously, if you've got wisdom from people in books like the Bible, they're not here to be with us, but you could read about their lives. And if you've got someone that lives across the country, around the world, you might be able to watch a YouTube video or read an article of someone who's been alive recently and gain wisdom from them. So spend time with people older and wiser than you. And listen, you have an opportunity right now this week to spend time with family, your parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, maybe cousins, someone in your family who is wiser than you. Ask them a question you've been dying to know or would like to know, and let them give you some wisdom from their life. It could be as simple as, what is something that you did when you were my age that you wish you could go back and do over? Help me to not have to want a do-over in my life. So learn from them. So then the second thing is, then you need to listen closely to what they say. Spend time with people and listen to what they say, and when they've shared with you, ask questions so you understand. If they're talking about something that you've never heard of before, ask about it. If they use a phrase that you don't quite understand, ask about it. And then make wise choices based on what you learned. Don't just have another story to tell or some more information in your head. Let that actually change your everyday life. And then repeat this process. This spending time with people, listening to them, asking questions, making choices. We do this over and over and over again for the rest of our lives. Listen, I'm a dad in my 40s, and I'm still listening to people older than me, whether it's reading a book, watching a video, or meeting with people in person. I'm listening to what they say, I'm asking questions so I understand, and then I'm putting that into practice so I can live a wise life. And I'm doing it over and over again, and you should too. So the question right now is, all this stuff is great, but this week, who will you spend time with to start this process of gaining wisdom? If you've got a name in mind, write it down. If it's a parent or a grandparent, Maybe you need to call somebody and set up a time to hang out with them. But who is someone older than you and wiser than you that you can just sit down and just listen to them for a little bit, ask some questions, and grow in wisdom from their life? Remember, we have knowledge and wisdom. And of all the people that will be in our service live this weekend and watching this video, some will grow in knowledge this year. They'll grow and have more information. Others will grow in wisdom. They'll make wise choices based on what they learn from others and their own experiences. My challenge for you is to be the type of person who will grow in wisdom. It all starts by choosing to hang out with someone that can make you more wise. Let me pray for you. God, I thank you that in my life, although I have plenty of embarrassing stories and sometimes just accidental, sometimes some foolish choices, I thank you for giving me wise people, whether it's the book of Proverbs and Jesus and James and others in Scripture that I can learn from who aren't here with me in person, or whether it's a family member or a friend, a teacher, a coach, a pastor, a small group leader, a relative, a friend. There are so many wise people that you've given me in my life, and I pray that these students would this week pick one person to spend time with and learn from. We know we have information. What we need is wisdom. And James, Jesus' brother, said, if we need it, to ask you. And so I pray right now that you will give these students wisdom, and you'll give it to them through someone they know they will spend time with this week. That they might even spend time in Scripture learning from Jesus and from others, maybe from King Solomon and his wisdom. May we not just be smarter and have more knowledge in 2022, but may we live wise lives, putting into practice, making choices that are wise, and living more and more in every way like Jesus. Amen. Hey, thanks for joining me. If you have questions or need help when it comes to gaining wisdom, you can use that contact prayer and information link on our video description. Otherwise, hopefully you'll have a good week spending time with someone, learning from them, and then we'll see you for week 2 of Words for the Wise.